Hey, thanks for watching. Just a quick video update, and I said I was going to do this, and again, these aren't a lot of fun to do, but I think it's important for residents of the city of Isanti to kind of know a little bit about what's going on. So this is just going to cover the attempt by Mayor Johnson to get rid of our building inspection company, as well as this ridiculous budget and tax hikes and stuff that are coming down the pipeline here. So we're going to go over this. I've got notes to the side, so I might glance over at them on a couple things, and then we're going to switch over to a couple pieces for you to look at as well. So I'll be going off the video and onto that. I'll be talking to you about those particular things at that time. So going to jump into it with replacing Minspec. So Minspec was hired by the city a couple of years ago instead of having a building official on staff. Having a building official on staff can give you a little bit of flexibility, and when you're, really have some good expansion building times, which we've had for, a good 5 years or so in the city of Isanti, there's no financial problem. The building permits pays for that, and when things go very well, we actually bring in more revenue than what is paid out for those inspections, which then kind of runs you into the other side of the equation, where by state law you're not allowed to collect any more in building fees than your cost to do the inspection. So we ended up going with Minspec when our previous building official left. We had looked around and thought, this is probably the best thing for the city for really 3 reasons. One is, as I said, the financial aspect of it, where when things, slow down, and they most certainly do, then city taxpayers end up paying a big chunk and sometimes all of the cost of that building official, and that's really not how that's supposed to work. Secondly, when you have a third party like Minspec, which is a highly credible, ethical company, does a great job enforcing the building code, it takes away that kind of local political aspect of it, where a builder will call up a council member or a mayor and say, hey, you know what, your building official's giving me a hard time. We think we should be able to do it this way. There's just none of that, because Minspec as a third party company isn't going to put their reputation at stake for one of 20 or 30 customers they might have. So it gets rid of that issue as well, and it just allows us to ensure really good inspections for those residents who haven't lived here before I was mayor. We had some significant issues with builders and developers taking pretty much advantage of the city. There were a lot of financial issues at that time, as well as things not being enforced properly as well. So that got all cleaned up my first years as mayor, and then having Minspec there as that third party, ethical third party, because there are some third party companies out there that, again, just kind of let everything flow as long as they get their check. Minspec is not like that. At the last committee meeting of the whole, Mayor Johnson said he's been receiving complaints, I think he said every day, about Minspec. Minspec asked for those complaints and what inspections they were tied to. None of that was provided to them, so they were unable to put up any kind of defense against that. And it looks like at tonight's council meeting they're going to be looking at whether they're going to get rid of Minspec. Now, when we hired Minspec, I did get a couple complaints from a couple builders who didn't care for them because they were enforcing the building code. They were being very strong and making sure that everything was being done the way it should be done, and that is something that, again, a couple of builders didn't seem to like. So I don't know what's all going on behind the scenes, but they are a really good company, and it's good for the city to have that third-party inspection company for those reasons that I stated, especially as it looks like we might be slowing down in the national economy and potentially locally as well. I know for certain we haven't had a lot of the commercial and industrial type buildings going up this year, and housing has slowed a little bit. So we'll see where all that meshes out, but we really should hold on to Minspec. The other thing I want to talk about is the city budget. We're going to click over to a couple of graphs and things. One of them, the first one that I'm going to be showing you guys, is about, there's actually from the city budget, and I apologize, when they send the city budget out, and again, anybody can sign up to get on this list to get all of the packet that the council members get. emailed to you for free. Doesn't cost anything. You just have to get your name on the list, and I really recommend it to any city residents to do that. But when they send out the city budget, it's PDF. The font is terribly small, so I'm going to try to get this thing enlarged so you can actually see it. But I'm going to take those numbers, and I've taken those as well as the LGA numbers for the last few years to show you what is happening for the 2020 budget, which is Mayor Johnson's first budget. They're going to be increasing the amount of revenues that the city's taking in by 25%. And I'm going to walk you through that. It's really crazy. In our plan, we had for 2020 another 10% tax cut. So we're going to go through that. I'm going to switch over to that now, and then we'll end this video. Thanks a lot. So the first slide that we're looking at here, our first little image, goes over from 2018, which is the first set of numbers, 2019, which is this year's budget, which was my last budget that I put together as mayor, and then the 2020 budget, which is Mayor Johnson's first budget. That top line, the 530 to 534 to 369, are the city's debt payments. And as I've talked to you guys many times before, the city's debt is going down dramatically. Next year it's going to take another big fall and pretty soon be virtually gone. And I don't know what any new projects they might have in the works or not with that. And then the number under that is the total amount of property taxes collected. So in 2018 it was 2.7 million. For 2019 we collected 2.4 million. Again, that was the last budget. That was that big tax cut that I had promised and delivered. And then for some reason they're jacking it up almost to $3 million dollars for 2020. And that gets us to the next image that we'll be bringing up here. And this image goes into takes those numbers, the debt numbers, the property tax numbers, and then I also add in the LGA, which is the local government aid portion, and that's money that we get from the state, and that money is sent to the city to try to lower local property taxes or to keep them low. And in this case, it seems like that's really not what's happened. So when you look at this image, you have 2018 on the left. You have 530, almost 531 in debt payments, 2,759,000, almost 2,760,000 in city property taxes collected, and then local government aid was 631, again almost 632. So what I've done is I've taken those two numbers of the property taxes and the LGA, combined those and subtracted the city debt to get that next number, which is $2,860,000. And that number is the total amount that we can use to spend anything that's not debt related. Okay. Then when you switch over to 2019, which again was the last budget that I had put together for the city, debt payments had gone up just slightly to 534. We cut property taxes dramatically, which anybody who was here 2 years ago and is here today, really felt a nice big tax cut. And then local government aid went up, about around $4,000 there. So not really much of an increase. So you do the same formula. Our total was 2.5 million, or 344, almost $345,000 cut, which was a 14% overall. Now this just isn't property taxes, but we had about a 14% reduction in the amount of money that was used in our budget for 2019. In 2020, we have city debt payments, which have dropped dramatically to 369. And again, like I said, 2021, 2022, that number is going to continue to drop, which is a greater reason not ever to have to raise property taxes. But they are. They have dramatically increased property taxes. This is the highest property tax number we've ever had. So 2.9 million, almost $3 million in property taxes. Again, the biggest number in city history, which is, really bonkers. And on top of that, we're going to be getting $102,000 more in state aid. We're up to $737,000 in state aid. So there's a tremendous amount more in cash coming in the door and a lot less money having to go out to pay debt. So the total of that property tax, LGA minus debt, is 3.3, almost $3.4 million. That's an increase by $848,000, or a 25% increase. So for 2020, they're going to boost themselves by 25%. Okay? Now, for all kinds of reasons, this is a bad idea. I know that there was in the audit reveal that the finance director had misstated something in the, or I shouldn't say misstated, but did some numbering wrong for a journal entry, and they're trying to make up for that. Which, one, you don't have to do that all in 1 year if that is the case, and two, you don't increase taxes like this. You don't increase that kind of money coming in the door. Because once you have that kind of money coming in the door, it's hard not to keep collecting it. And that's one of the things that I've always tried to do and be careful of and to warn people about, is that you cannot continue to bring in excess amounts of money. Because then it just becomes, sadly to say it, habit. And now if you take that 848,000 and you look at that 344 that we had cut, I mean, those numbers are such a blatant case of how things look like they're being mismanaged going forward. We should have had for 2020 another 10% tax decrease. We have our overall property value in the city. It looks like it's going to be up about 15%. That's a combination of increased values of the home you're in now, which means you'll be paying more taxes on that, as well as some of the new tax base that came in the door. You take that along with the actual rate increase, because they're increasing the tax rate in the city by 8%, plus this extra LGA, plus all this other money that they're bringing in. I don't know what kind of trend it's going to send. If it continues on this path, I think it's going to set a very negative precedent. And just from a political standpoint, any of those council members who are up for election next year, I don't know how you justify increasing revenues by 25%. You just can't. We had some significant financial issues when I first took over as mayor, and then we went through the Great Recession, and we cut taxes left and right. We cut costs too, though. I think one of the issues that they're facing are some of these increased salaries that they've approved. They've taken a part-time administrative position, have made it full-time. They've done a number of things like that, as well as these contracts that they just settled, which have some really long-term financial impacts too, as well as some non-budget expenses they've done this year. But none of those things should lead to this type of an increase of revenue. So I'll just say it one more time. City debt payments have gone down significantly from 534 to 369. Next year's going to go down more. Okay, so that's going to go down more in 2021, which means that there'll be even more room in the city budget. So if they're trying to make up for something or trying to fill some hole that they've created, that can happen naturally over a 2 to 3 year period of time. Okay, as well as if you continue to grow economically, which unfortunately no actual substantial businesses have come to the city this year, unfortunately, and that is, perhaps that's part of the calculation. One of the things that we did with our economic development team was we kept a lot of commercial and industrial projects going through the hopper because they add a lot of property tax base to the community, so we could try to work to lower and continue to lower city residential property taxes. So again, I don't mean to ramble on here, but it is quite stark looking at this situation in these numbers. So as you've seen these, you've taken a look at them. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer a few of those. But frankly, I'm not going to spend really much more time on this. I'm not your mayor anymore, nor will I ever be. And that was something I've been asked, coming up here as well. I'm not running for city office anymore. I cannot stress that enough. It's just not going to happen. There's quite an interesting mess being made here, and I'll maybe keep you up to date. But honestly, it's just kind of a sad thing for me to have to do and to look at, and I really don't like looking at what's going on here, especially after the decade plus that a lot of us, and it's not just me, but a lot of us worked really hard to get the city's finances, making that in economic development on track again. So this hopefully will be the last time I go into this. I mean, every time I say that, there's something even more shocking. But when I saw that they were increasing 25% revenue to the bottom line of the city in 1 year, it reminded me of when I first decided to run for mayor in 2006. Because at that time I was on the city council, and I couldn't believe it because they had increased the city budget by 40%. Well, this is bonkers what's going on here. So pay attention. This can't be allowed to continue. And like I said, if they're trying to fill some hole or something, over the next 2 to 3 years, that would happen naturally. One of my fears is that they're going to get all this revenue in, and then come election time for the next, whether it's the mayor's election or something like that, then they'll find, a way to cut it back down. But they're increasing taxes. One of the other things I think is kind of funny that they're putting out there is this whole idea that, well, the average, I think they come up with something, the average tax rate from 2004 or something to now is like going to be slightly less than what they had. Well, yeah, the couple of years in there before I was mayor, they were really high. And so taxes do, the rate actually ebbs and flows, and that's why you want to look at the actual raw numbers, because those percentages, there's the quote that I've used and is out there for generations, is, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. So when you talk about that tax rate, yep, you can cut that, you can increase that, but that raw number, and that's where we're getting this 25%, it's the actual raw number of new money going into the city coffers. 25% in 1 year. Can't stress that enough. So thanks for listening. Like I said, this will be up for a few hours, so everybody can take a look at it, share it out, and that kind of thing. And then I'll, maybe I'll leave it up overnight and then just get rid of it tomorrow. So my non-City of Isanti followers and stuff aren't bogged down in the city stuff. And I'm trying to get more and more out of that. But again, this isn't a political thing. I'm not ever running for city office again. I'm not running for any kind of state office, nothing like that. The only thing that's ever been of interest to me in those last 6 months is with our schools, and because the education piece of the things that we're trying to do with Wimmer's Wilderness, that really does kind of spark an interest in me. But again, I don't know if I'd ever want to put my family through this election process anymore. And honest to God, it's a lot less stress not being involved with it. But this was, I think, too big not to mention. And that min spec thing, it may not seem like a big deal, but it really is. Okay, you got to have that independent third-party building inspector, especially for a community this size and for a lot of the nonsense that's happened in the past and what looks like it's going on, into the future here. So having as many third-party kind of overseers of what's going on, it's not a bad thing. So thanks for listening. Have a great day.